Welcome to Loop City. This is a special episode. As always, we are a group of five guys that love hoops, entertainment, and video games. Today on the show, we got Gonzo Star, Coach Matt Miller, and Rad Rim, and of course myself, Mike Skills. We're going to talk today about the passing of Bill Russell, the not only NBA great, but I consider an activist, a all around great human, and a great example. Um, I mean, a lot of even casual basketball fans know the name of Bill Russell, and us as the sweaties and as hoopers, we all know the importance of Bill Russell, not just on the court, not just his 11 titles, not just showing up for Muhammad Ali at the Cleveland Summit, but for what he has done and been an example shining out. A few things I wanted to highlight, because people like to compare errors and whatnot, but when you look at his numbers, they just jump off the page sometimes, and it's like obviously 11 NBA BP
Mike is having some technical difficulties, but what he was saying was Bill Russell was such an activist. He's got the 11 rings. He was the first black coach in the NBA, first player coach in the NBA at the same time. So there's a mouthful to be said about the great Bill Russell. It's even hard to speak about him in past tense because he's one of those figures that you always envision would be around. You never really talked about what life would be without him. And he did so much on the court that he almost seemed immortal. So his death is even at what 88 years old, it still comes as a
Yes.
shock, and it still comes as a surprise to us all because we just kind of like Michael Jackson, we just assumed he'd always be around. Greg, can you want to start this off? I'm gonna go to you first. What do you have to say about the late great Bill Russell? You're
You're on
muted.
mute, Greg. You're muted.
Hall of Famer, 75th, 75 greatest players, four-time rebound champ, and 11-time NBA champion, 11-time All NBA, 1968-69 All Defensive Team, and he only had one All Defensive Team, and I'm not sure if they even counted him before then. So maybe that was like the year before he. I think maybe that might have been his last year that he retired. They gave him All Defensive Team, All Star MVP in 62, 63. The guy has an average of 15 and 23 a game for his career with 4 assists. They didn't even count blocks and steals in that period, so he possibly could have been a quadruple double player if we counted in blocks and steals because they didn't count him at this time. The dude's nickname was called the Stuffer. Like that just goes on just shot blocking alone. So he could have very well been the first triple double guy averager in NBA, first in NBA history. But we don't see that, and we don't get that title for him because, like I said, blocks and steals weren't counted. Not only what he did on the basketball court. When I say he was the third option scoring, and he still averaged 15 and got 23 rebounds in an era where the NBA was much more physical. It was tough, but he was the third option on the team and still put up 15 points. Gave you 11 championships. I was watching this documentary when they had on him. It said that how the fast break started with him. Fast break basketball existed in the NBA once he came to the NBA. That's when it started because he would get the ball. Cousy would be in one spot. He would pass to Cousy, and Cousy would pass to whoever's open there then, like Sam Jones. Like these guys, it's just three passes and they were scoring on most teams, and most teams couldn't handle that. But not without to go away from the on the court stuff. What he did for the civil rights movement, uh, and sometimes we have to credit not only just for players for being good on the court, we have to give them credit for taking stripes off the court, playing in a hostile, prejudiced environment such as Boston, and still was
Mhm.
able to go out and compete and win championships despite the hometown crowd didn't even root for them. They rooted for the Boston Bruins who won nothing. but he still went out and performed at the highest level and won championship after championship and after championship. And it saddens me most of all about his career is that he wasn't appreciated early on. We appreciate him more now in the and later on in his career, at well beyond his playing years. We respect him more now for his playing days now than he did back then. You know, so I don't think he really got the praise that he deserved. And I'm one of those people who it's only a few people I can really argue, like when it comes down to like GOAT status. And I got Michael Jordan, but I would take the argument for Bill Russell. I would take the argument for Kareem. I would take the argument for Hakeem. I would take the argument for Magic Johnson. Those are like the few people, more than a few, but those are like the 4 people I could take an argument for GOAT for. But Bill Russell definitely up there, top 10 player, one of my top 10 favorites of all time. And I wasn't even around to see him play, but watching just YouTube clips and listening to him talking to even Wilt Chamberlain some clips, telling people how he thought on defense on how to guard Wilt Chamberlain. Just to give a snippet of how intelligent he was, he said that he would let Wilt score. He would let Wilt score from quarter 1 through 3 as much as he wanted. And when the fourth quarter came, he would play tight defense on him and force Wilt to throw it to the open guys who were open. And by that time, the other players on Wilt's team didn't have a rhythm because they haven't touched the ball from quarter 1 through 3. So now these guys are missing wide open shots. And he says they're just fast breaking because he says not only is Wilt a good sprinter and Wilt's a great player, but Wilt's like 260 pounds, 70 pounds. It's hard for him to keep up now because he's bearing the weight of the whole game and doing what he wants to quarter 1 through 3. So now he's tiring out, same way he did. He talked about doing it, what he would do to Shaq in today's NBA. And we just run him off the floor. And it's like that little bit of detail showed me how great he was and how thorough he was in thought on defense and how to accomplish all of these championships. It just lets you know that not only was Red Auerbach was the coach, but Bill Russell was an extension of that coach on the floor.
You know, that was beautifully put. And I think that people don't understand the forefathers of the game. That's why it saddens me when people call his competition plumbers. When JJ Redick was saying that Bob Cousy wouldn't make it today, a lot of these people were very progressive. You have to think about it. Red Auerbach in Boston coached Bill Russell, right? Who the city of Boston hated. They vandalized his house. They broke into his house. They spray painted the N-word in there while he was winning championships. People don't understand that you don't get these max contracts without a Bill Russell. We've seen the highlights of Wilt Chamberlain in HD, the remastered highlights, and you saw this guy can really play. He was Shaquille O'Neal before Shaquille O'Neal, and Bill Russell still dominated an era with less teams with that kind of talent. We cannot diminish what the man has done and what he did for civil rights, how he endured all of that, how he was about protesting and boycotting the Olympics in the 60s, all of these wonderful things he did. He paved the way for even people like Coach Matt Miller on this podcast. Can you imagine him being the only black guy, or him being one of the most gifted athletes on that team and in the league, period, in a city that hates you? He did more for that city than Larry Bird did in terms of winning and bringing the winning mentality. He's the reason why the Boston Celtics has some of them. I think they're like a game behind the Lakers, correct? And most wins,
or for championships.
No, they still lead.
Or they still lead. The
they
Lakers
have
are a game
17. I
behind
think
them.
Lakers got 16
behind them. I'm sorry, Matt. Please shed some light on this, because you were the only white player on the varsity team our senior year in high school. Just talk about what Bill Russell meant to you and the importance of that, and the importance of diversity, and him being a forefather, him being for the game, or being a huge ambassador for the sport and being activists in the civil rights movement is what I really want to say.
That is a very loaded question.
I'm
So
sorry.
I'll take it. I'll try to take them one at a time. I'm gonna do my best because like our good buddy, Coach Goodman, he always talks about the guys he's seen, and he's always said, I don't comment much on Russell because I never was fortunate to see him play, and clearly none of us were either. It's we're young spry chickens here, so we've never had the chance to see him play. But when you guys have mentioned the whole thing, the thing that I was gonna say it too, he literally was going out there and dominating the game. Right, 11. He has more rings than he does fingers. Think about that. And I don't care if there were only 8 teams. If it were that easy to win a championship, why did the other 7 teams not win one? Right. But all the while doing this, when most of the fans at the arena, yeah, they like that you're on their team, but they hate you. They really don't give a damn about you just because of the color of your skin, And I like that Byron answered the question about me, asked that question because for those who, don't know, I went to A-Leaf Elsick High School. I was the one white guy on the team. Like, it was kind of the reverse thing. I was basically my second year there. It was like me and what was it there? There was like one other white dude in the whole basketball program, right? But what's great about that is I was accepted by everybody. There was no, oh, that's the white boy, F him, this and that. He's weak. It was none of that. And even amongst, just my classmates who I may not have even known. And we went to a school, like 5,000 students. There was no hatred that I ever saw. To me, Byron can touch on it. Did I get hated on that much? You know what I mean? And I mention this because
Really.
of the things he kind of paved this way, only in like for me to have that opportunity, as even though it is in reverse. But I think, and then just the whole time, also winning these championships while pushing these different movements with the
Right.
civil rights and the protesting. He paved the way for Colin Kaepernick to kneel. Without Bill Russell, Colin Kaepernick does not get to kneel and protest his grievances.
And another thing I want to touch on is oftentimes people like Russell are not appreciated until they're older, until they've been out of the game for a long time. Every time he was present at a playoff game or finals game, that camera always showed him. And a lot of times he'd be sitting with his hand in his hands and flashing one of those beautiful rings that he worked so hard to get. It takes such humility to do what he did in the time that he did it in. He is up there with the Alis, the Jackie Robinsons, the greats.
And
Let's touch on this now that Mike, are you ready to go, Mike? Because I want to come to you next to talk about this. Are you ready?
He's in his car. You're
Yeah,
muted.
Go outside.
That's well, we're glad you're back on. Mike, can you touch on this? Because I know we're gonna eventually get on the whole, Draymond Green and JJ Redick are making a lot of comments that are stirring people up. I find it very disrespectful to discredit what the players of old have done, like
It's disrespectful.
the Bob Cousy. It's so disrespectful. And I hear people say things like, "Oh, he played against plumbers," or "the competition wasn't that fierce." The guy played with a broken arm at one point.
Yeah, he played. He
On
had the
that,
guard
and the relevance to it. Can you touch on that, Mike?
Yeah, he had to guard Will Chamberlain, someone that was bigger than him, taller than him, and only equal in rebounding in NBA history. Like when you look at the stats, all-time rebounds in NBA history, it's Bill Russell, and that's it. And then there's like a 5,000 rebound. There's like a 3,000 or 5,000 rebound gap, and then everyone else. So played against the best. He competed against Will Chamberlain, who was, and I know you know this, Byron. He was, and not only was he a high jump, a triple jump, a long jump champ, he
A
played
volleyball player.
everything. He, when we talk about athletes, we talk about people who can ball,
Mm-hmm.
really athletic, really can go. Like that's the thing we always say is like, oh, so and so can go. It's like, yes, so and so can go. To average 22.5 rebounds for your career, that's not a plumber. Like, bro, 22.5 rebounds.
And he had to do it against arguably the most athletic big man ever in Wilt. He was the most athletic big man ever.
Absolutely. It's not even a fair comparison. JJ is out of his freaking mind. I love JJ, but he's wrong for this. I hate him for this. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you can't compare eras, but there's no one in this era averaging 22 rebounds.
No,
Have we ever? Who's the closest? Dennis?
I don't even think Dennis did it. Maybe
I know Dennis had to have been 16, 17.
I think Charles Barkley may have done it for a season or more.
Not 20. I
Right.
don't think he was in the 20s.
Right. I know he led we have the things these guys were doing were incredible. And I feel that
Dennis got 18.7 and 18.3 in back-to-back seasons.
Okay, I thought that's what I thought. Dennis got to 18.
excuse me. And I know that many players said that they missed so many layups because Russell was so fast up and down the court. You think you have a layup and you left him, and before you know it, he's blocking it.
Mm-hmm. He was a really good athlete in his own, like just himself. He was no slouch, And granted, we didn't get to see the games, but we've seen the highlights. That guy could move. He was athletic.
Wasn't he a long jumper?
He might have been. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure about.
And you got to think about the conditions
the biopic of Bill Russell. I really, really would.
You have to look at. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, we may get something. They may do something for him now that he's passed. Unfortunately, we may get some stuff where they really, show our generation and the younger generation, like this is who this guy was.
I think that see something like this for me, this should have already been done. Like, I hate seeing buyout picks once a person has their time has expired here. I think some things we need Bill Russell to kind of direct and give more accurate encounters on what happened throughout his life. We always seem to get this once a person, like I said, expires.
Yeah. And then you don't get the true. And then when it comes out, you don't get the true story.
Yes, you get this crazy, weird, edit that just doesn't seem real. Almost
you get a fantasy story.
Yes, and somebody like him should have had one. Like, he's a pioneer of the NBA. This should have been talked about.
He should, he should have got his Last Dance, documentary, just like Jordan got, Derek Jeter's got his now. Bill Russell's, those guys should get one.
100%.
And I'll say this, that is one thing I think the Last Dance may have done, because you see, we're probably going to get a Kobe one. I didn't Peacock or one of those, didn't they do something with our Apple TV? They did one with Magic and the Lake. Exactly. We got the Derek Jeter one now. I think this is I think we need this while these guys are still alive.
Hey, let's be honest. Derek Jeter did not need his biopsy pick right now.
Well, he got his documentary, but whether he deserved it or not, it's good that it's paving the way for more to be done, though.
Well, I think it's great in this sense is that people who weren't around to see it need to see it, and also I think people tend to criticize these athletes without any knowledge of how hard it is to get to how hard it is to even be average, in any professional sport.
Man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You will destroy the regular person in the gym. I've done workouts with Coach Matt when he was trying to go pro, and even when he was trying to play in college, and the competition was fierce. I've been to gyms with Matt, and everybody knew Matt. And guys who never, I don't even think they played college ball before. They were guys that the average person in the gym who thinks they can ball couldn't even touch. There was this guy who played in a adult league with Matt. One day, Matt and I go in the gym. He's like, "Oh, what's up, Matt?" And I was like, "Matt, who's he?" He's a white dude, maybe a little taller than me. He had tattoos on his cows, I think Chinese letters or something, or some sort of Asian writing.
You're talking about Vincent.
And Matt's like, "Byron, that guy is cold, man." He said he can shoot, he can dribble, he can jump out the gym. He's like, he is good. He's like, you don't want no smoke with him. And the funny thing is, he I don't think he even played anywhere, but he'll go in the gym and destroy everybody. And people really don't realize that. So I want to go to you, Gonzo, on Draymond Green and JJ Redick's comments, because I think they're preposterous.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got to break it down real quick for those. Like we kind of JJ has been out there, but Draymond's I think are the ones, because what he did his tirade, about not comparing eras, and then he proceeded to compare eras with the Bulls and his Warriors with KD.
Gonzo, let's hear it.
First of all, these things can never really these comparisons can never really be done in real life. So all this stuff is just speculation. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is that there's two different sets of rules as well. I'm quite sure if the 96 Bulls took on the Golden State Warriors and it was 96, the Warriors probably wouldn't get all those shots off because the game was more physical. They would have a hand check. Like, it would be more difficult getting into the paint. And if the Bulls played in today's era, the thing is that they will be shooting more threes. You won't be able to hand check, so the game is more spaced out. But also, I hate when people say stuff like, "Well, Mike didn't shoot threes," but Mike was pretty. He was a pretty adaptive player.
I'm going to say this: when you look at Mike's 3-point shooting through his career, I did this a while back, and I'm not even going to go to those mid 90s teams, the three beats, because the line was in.
You are the number.
Yeah. So. This is just a regular number. This is just basic stats, not advanced. In the 1 year, there was a year in the late 80s, he shot like 3.5 threes a game, and he shot like 37%, 38%. Why couldn't he shoot? Like he made it a part of his game, and he made threes. He was a good 3-point shooter.
The 3-point line was farther out.
No. It was the same when he did that. The reason I'm not bringing up when he shot 40, 41%, 95, 96, because the line was moved in. So that's why I don't bring that up. But that's why I go to the 80s, because he had the 1 year he shot about 37, 38% on like 3-4 attempts a game, which shows he can shoot threes at a good percentage. And imagine if he made that a part of his game, and then what do you think Tony Kukoc does in today's game? He's way better.
For all we know, Kukoc may be on par with Luka Doncic because this is why I say this. He came to the league when he was older. He didn't come when they initially drafted him. He didn't report to the States right away. So we don't know. I don't think we –
because he was drafted in 90. He came like 3 years later.
I don't think we got his best years in the NBA.
No, we did. We got his best years.
I don't think so.
He wouldn't have been a better player. He wouldn't have been a better player at 19-20 than he was at 25-26. No way.
I definitely think so, because who would have been his teammates?
He still would. Yeah, who were his teammates when he came in? The same guys.
Michael Jordan wasn't there when he reported.
His rookie year. Yeah, his rookie year he wasn't there, but he was there for the next 4 years.
Imagine a younger Tony Kukoc in practice every day with Michael Jordan. That automatically forces you to step your game up the way he went full throttle in practices. So we really don't know. But I agree with the fact that he's definitely a better player in today's game with today's rules than he would have been back then.
And guess what? I'm going to go and say it. This may be a hot take. I think Rodman's better in today's game, actually.
100%. Absolutely.
Being able to guard all
think
5 positions.
There's not a big in the game or even a small who I think is mentally tough enough, not even LeBron James, to be guarded by Rodman. I think that Rodman would frustrate him. He would put him on his back. He'd be all in his head. Go ahead, say something, Greg. I see it. You want to say something?
I mean, yeah, Rodman would be him and Kukoc, I think, playing in today's game, if they were to play against the Warriors, they would be the X factors. Because one thing about Kukoc is that he's a good enough shooter. Put a guy like Kevin Looney on him, he's going to draw Kevin Looney out of the paint.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to worry about guys like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen cutting to the basket. You can put Klay Thompson on Michael Jordan. It won't stop him. I mean,
Okay, so let's break this down because Draymond, and I didn't, pardon me for not thoroughly explaining, he says that he's been watching old tape and he feels that the Warriors team of, 2017,
the first team with KD.
that added Durant would beat the 95-96 Bulls. But he omitted the part that Bulls team was older. Now,
And he said he beat him. They beat him by 20.
and we know that's cap unless we know which rules they play by. Now, if they play by,
I don't think it
those
matters
rules today, but if they play by those rules where you can't touch them, let's break this down together. First, I'll start and then I'll go to Gonzo. Like, for one, you brought up an interesting point about Kukoc and Rodman, but what about guys like Steve Kerr?
Yes,
And Judd Bushler and Ron Harper? Because
that's exactly what I was going to say.
With those rules, those guys get more playing time. Why? Because they could both shoot. And let's not act like Judd Bushler wasn't an athlete.
He could defend.
He wasn't slow. He was a little, he wasn't like super slow or anything like that.
He was a better volleyball player than basketball player.
So we know he could jump. But Steve Kerr, one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time, he gets more touches now. So how do you, I'm going to go to you first, Gonzo. How do they match up? What do you think? Who guards Durant? Who guards MJ? Who guards Steph? Who guards Klay?
I'm obviously going to put Jordan on Steph Curry.
Okay.
And I will put Scottie Pippen on Kevin Durant.
Okay.
Klay would have to be the guy. And the reason why I say you have to put like a Ron Harper or like a Randy Brown on Klay, because one thing about Klay is he's not going to do much dribbling. Most of his points are going to come off catch and shoot, catching and shooting. So his game against this team will be isolated to just that. Draymond won't be a factor. Kevin Looney won't be a factor. Like, then it will come down to like benches. Like I say, Judd Bushler, he can shoot. Steve Kerr can shoot. They get more. They get more chance. They get more.
Tony Kukoc.
Tony Kukoc can shoot. So if you get a lineup with Scottie Pippen, just say if you put Kukoc at center, Scottie at power forward. Just say if you just ran Mike at small forward, just for running at the small forward spot. Just give an example.
So this is playoff time. So that we're talking like they're going to play upper 30s, low 40 minutes, right?
Right. So
okay,
you got Kukoc, Rodman, Pippen, Jordan, and you throw somebody like Steve Kerr in, and Pippen runs the point, or Jordan runs the point. You know how many wide open shots you're going to get? Because at some point, Michael Jordan's going to demand a double team if they're playing in today's rules. You're going to have to give it to him because you're not going to be able to stop him. Nobody has done it in the history of the game.
Nope.
He's unstoppable.
Coach Matt, who's the biggest issue for the 95-96 Bulls in terms of
it's clearly Kevin Durant because of the skill set and just the length and the size, right? 7 foot long, can shoot the basketball, one of the 10 best shooters of all. He's going to be the issue. And Steph Curry, and I'll say that because of how deep you have to play him. However, I think the Bulls are the perfect team equipped to guard him. And what I would do is this. If I am, Phil Jackson and I'm the 95-96 Bulls, and I'll be Steve Kerr for the Warriors team as well and do both ways. I'm putting to start the game, like I'm going to actually throw Harper, Jordan, and Pippen at Durant. I'm going to give him different looks. I'm going to start Scottie on Kevin. I'm going to put Mike on Steph, and I would put Ron on Klay. just because of what Greg said. Clay's not really going to go off the dribble. You know, and Harper in his own right, great defensive player, right? Luke's going to guard Kevon Looney. And then, as Dennis said on ESPN once, I've got that Green guy. Dennis is going to frustrate the hell out of Draymond. I mean, LeBron James frustrated Draymond Green. Imagine what Dennis would do to him. Dennis is probably getting him kicked out the game before the halftime. So
I think it's the other way around. I think Draymond frustrated LeBron. That's why I said that LeBron.
Yeah, but Draymond still reacted, though. It was Draymond who did. LeBron reacted. Draymond reacted to that. So, but off the bench,
they should have both.
What Greg didn't mention is you have Randy Brown, elite defensive player, 6'3", 6'4", size. You know, Tony, Judd. And then don't forget guys like Dickie Simpkins and Jason Caffey. Guys, some size. You know what I mean? And then you had Bill Wennington could come in, play 5 minutes a game, hit that chip shot, 15-foot jumper, play some tough defense. They had bodies they could throw at this Golden State team. You know what I mean? And Tony Kukoc would have just been a problem. And then, but now if I'm Golden State on the other end, what I'm doing is
that was my next question. Keep going.
I'm putting Kevin on Michael. I'm gonna put Clay on Scotty, and I'll let Steph guard Ron Harper, because Harper was not, at this time in his career, he wasn't that guy offensively like when he was in Cleveland and with the Clippers. And then of course Draymond is gonna guard Dennis, but he's gonna play more of a free safety in Rome because Dennis couldn't shoot. And then obviously Kevon Looney's gonna guard Luke Longley. And I mean that could definitely pose some problems for the Chicago team. That's not something they would have ever faced before. However, regardless of rules, in both scenarios, whether we're playing 90s rules, mid-90s rules, or today's rules, I'm taking the Bulls in 6 in both of them. I would go Bulls in 6.
That was my next
another
question.
thing too. I got one more thing to add to that. Is that if we're gonna play 1996 Bulls against 2017 Warriors, we got Kerr, so that means you won't even have Kerr coaching your team.
No, he would still coach. No, you'd have to do that. That
can't
would
be on both sides. I mean,
you could be. You figure it out. You figure that out. You have to count it. It's still there. It's still there.
Okay, so what about
guys
like John Livingston coming off the bench? What do you have to say about that?
He'd be a tough cover for the Bulls because he can get. We all know how good he is in the mid range with that turnaround, and he's 6'7", 6'8". He can get and he can dribble. He can get to his spot. I mean, you don't have to worry about him out at the 3-point line. He did shoot threes, but he was a good free throw shooter, so you couldn't just foul him. He would be a tough cover for the Bulls. Honestly, I like Sean Livingston.
Gonzo, how many games does it go?
Me personally, I think it goes 6 games. Go 6.
Both ways? Do you think it goes 6? Either way, whatever rules it is, it still goes 6.
I think it goes 6 both ways.
Yeah, because either rules you're playing with, Steph, KD, and Clay, they're going to hit shots in 2 of those games, and there's nothing they're going to be able to do. Yeah. You know, the difference though is with the Bulls, you got Mike and Scotty. They're going to get to the rim. They're going to get to the foul line. Whereas the Warriors, you know. And I know, and look, Steph is a very underrated driver of the basketball, finisher at the rim. He ain't Scotty and Mike, though.
And if he's playing in the 90s, he ain't coming to the hole because he getting beat
Yeah, they're going to beat him up. Yeah, but
100%.
I think if he would have played in the 90s, he'd have strengthened up, and I think he would have been able to adjust. I do. That's why I love when we compare eras, because you got to also, when you say these guys couldn't play then, I would push back and say, well, they would develop. They would have to learn to play that way, which they would have if they grew up. Just like if Bob Cousy plays now, I guarantee you Bob Cousy ain't only dribbling his right hand.
He's Steve Nash.
He's playing now.
He plays today. He's Steve
probably
Nash, John Stockton if he plays today. Now, gentlemen, where I disagree with you two is I would put Harper on Curry because we know Mike doesn't like to run and he didn't like to chase Reggie Miller around. B.J. Armstrong said he hated guarding me. He hated those guards that made you run around and chase them. I would put Mike on Clay, and I think they would throw Klay Thompson at Mike. Steve Kerr would, because if you throw, you're not going to put your best player on him because it's a liability because you're going to get him in foul trouble. Durant can really do is foul Mike. He's going to go for those fakes. Mike's got those huge hands. He'll give a pump fake. KD will be in the air. I just see a lot of foul trouble and Mike blowing by him.
And Mike could bang him down low because Mike was stronger
than him. And Ron Artest said he was stronger than LeBron James, if not equally as strong. He said that man is deceptively strong, a lot stronger than what you think.
Mhm.
So that was a beautiful, beautiful segment.
Hey, real quick, Byron, I'm with you on
But
the. I will say this on your who guards Curry. I think I would adjust that to. I think you do the same thing with Curry that you do with Durant. You throw Pippen on him from time to time. Michael, you give him the different looks. With those great players, sometimes you got to give them different looks, which is what Golden State would probably do with Michael. You'd see Iguodala on him from time to time. You'd see Durant. You would see Clay. You know what I mean? So you get the you got to throw those guys different looks. So I think that's probably how it goes with both sides. But I had to correct that with Katie because I think if with Jordan, that's exactly what they would do. And we did forget to talk about Iguodala, which is a big time factor.
a big time because and like you said, I think it'll come down to the benches, but the Bulls still are definitely they have the better scorers, the better defenders. I think defense is what's going to win it all in the end. There's no Scottie Pippen on that Warriors team defensively. There is no Dennis Rodman. There's no Michael Jordan. There is no Ron Harper. And I'm glad
Draymond Green is probably the best defensive player of this era right now.
Exactly.
So he's great, but do you want to put him? I think you have to put him up there with the Mikes and the Scotties and the Dennises. Not saying he's better, but he's up there. So that is what Golden State does have.
And I don't think Durant has faced anyone who's as defensively tough for him as Scottie Pippen would be. Maybe
Hell
Giannis.
no.
Not even Giannis. Not even Giannis.
He never really faced Giannis when he never really faced Giannis like where Giannis is now. So he's never like you saw it a little bit, what was it, 2 years ago when KD stepped on and KD was getting his buckets but Giannis wasn't just checking him the whole time. So
I don't think they even wanted to see GP, to be honest with you. I don't even think they wanted Kevin Durant wants to see Gary Payton, to be honest with you.
Well, no, because we've seen, and I say this, you can put small guy like you could throw Randy Brown on Kevin, right?
Right.
Because if you remember, Greg, and I'll mention this. Didn't Chris Paul kind of do a good job on KD from time to time with his big, because he's only 6'6'1", but he's a solid guy.
Yeah, he's stout.
Randy Brown is about 6'3", 6'4", and solid. He could have and he was an elite defensive player. He could have gave KD problems. Like the Bulls just had, I think, more guys to throw at you defensively, and they had shooters. I think people don't remember. Like they realize because of the arrows. Oh, they wouldn't have. That team could shoot. Like how many guys? Like they had a shit ton of guys that could shoot the ball.
So another thing that Mike has brought up, Coach Matt has brought up to me that we wanted to discuss is the criteria for a superstar. Because I think we in today's culture, we throw words around too loosely now. Those words being classic, epic, superstar. And I believe when we were growing up, we saw what a superstar really was. Because in those days, we didn't have the technology we have today. We didn't have social media. But the information still traveled so fast because of the magnitude of the superstardom of some of these athletes. One that is just, even LeBron James in this era still doesn't come close to the fanfare, the pandemonium, the chaos that Michael Jordan brought about. What is the criteria of a superstar? And I'll start with this. I'll ask this question because this is the person who is in those conversations right now. Is Kyrie Irving a superstar?
No. And when I say he's not a superstar, he's a very good player. But I want to add something to the Michael Jordan and LeBron thing. See, Michael Jordan was loved because the way he played the game. People dislike LeBron in the NBA because of some of his decisions. Is it fair? No, because he played out his contract with Cleveland and he left.
Mm-hmm.
He was a free agent. So
he never forced his way out anywhere.
He never forced his way out. He played his contract and he left as a free agent, which is fair. I I think LeBron doesn't have as many people rooting him on, but he has just as many haters hating him. So that counts. That counts just as much as Michael Jordan had everybody love him.
Not
He
it
has a
depends on who you ask. They didn't love him in Cleveland. They didn't love him in New York.
But
New
the moment
York-
he came back to
New York
Cleveland, they
people-
fell in love with him again. So it's one of those things where Cleveland's always going to have this personal anger against him because of how he left the first time. Then he came back and he left again. I kind of understand, and people don't like the reason why LeBron left in this day and age, and I get it. It's because to them it seemed like NBA players were more loyal in the 90s. It wasn't that they were more loyal.
Hold on. I meant people don't love. You say people love Michael Jordan. It depends.
Yeah, people loved him.
You know what though?
It depends.
They didn't
New
love
York
Mike in
Knicks
Cleveland when
fans
he
didn't love
played.
him.
Yeah, they love him now.
Cavaliers fans didn't love him at the
They
time.
love him now.
He was shattering their Miami Heat fans in that era didn't love him. They hated him because he was constantly beating those teams.
New York and Cleveland are the only fans that probably hated Mike.
But
at that
the
time.
point I'm trying to make is, and I've really been analyzing this, thinking about this, and I'm going to go to my superstar thing in a minute. I think that we dislike LeBron for the wrong reasons. We dislike him because of his decisions, but he was a free agent. When you're a free agent, I can go anywhere I want to go. I play my contract. They didn't do it in the 80s and 90s. You know why? Because players had 8-year contracts. You couldn't go anywhere. There's nothing you could do.
Now,
but
the most you can have
but
is
I
5
guarantee
years.
I guarantee you, Mike had 2-year contracts. When he had the option to do that, I bet he probably would have been gone the moment Jerry Krause didn't fix the team. Like they were out of there. They were forced into contracts.
Maybe.
I disagree. He
maybe
would have joined forces with 2 others. He wouldn't have joined the Lakers or the Celtics or the Pistons. That's not his mentality.
He probably would have joined the Knicks.
He and Kobe had to kill a very competitive mentality. I'm glad you went down this rabbit hole. I'm with it now because LeBron James said himself, and you don't say this as an athlete. He said this early in his career. I don't have the same killer instinct that Kobe Bryant has. He said this at a time when Kobe Bryant was the best player in the NBA. What are you really saying? You don't want it as bad as him? What he was saying was he's not cut from that cloth. And
it's not
admitted that. He's
not
cut from that
fair
cloth.
because it's not fair to do it because as good of a player Kobe Bryant is, he was a very selfish player too. He was very inefficient. He has the most missed field goals of all time. That's because he took a lot of shots with triple teams. We're not talking about Michael Jordan. We're talking about Kobe Bryant. Right. So it's unfair to say just killer instinct. Well, LeBron had killer instinct too. I'll give an example. In the bubble, the game I think they lost against Miami, he was going baseline to his right. He got triple teamed. He had one guy on him. Another guy came. The third person came over. He kicked it to Danny Green. Danny Green missed the wide open 3, and they lost that game. That is a smart decision. And the comments said he should have took the shot with 3 people on him. That is idiot basketball to take a shot with 3 people on you. That is freaking stupid. You should be pulled out of the game if you do that.
Remember Michael Jordan passed the ball in 97 to Steve Kerr because he was double teamed.
That's smart basketball. You start to see once Mike out of the selfish mode, he started passing to open people. He became what LeBron James has always been.
I love that Greg has finally come around to this. I'm not a LeBron guy, and I'm not a Westbrook guy. But now, Greg, do you see why I defend Russell Westbrook from top? Because I think he gets way too much slander that's unfair, which LeBron gets.
Now hold on.
I'll say this about Westbrook: he's the most disrespected MVP that we have.
He shouldn't have been MVP. I'm not even going to go there. But I think Russell Westbrook gets way too much hate.
The most disrespected MVP.
Now, my problem with Russell Westbrook is this: it's not his aggressiveness. It's not that he's not an all-star. Superstar, that's when I have a question when you say superstar. Because superstars are players who are consistent, efficient. They're great during the regular season, but also they lead their teams pretty far by themselves in the playoffs. They can get to at least a second round.
Championship?
No,
you don't have to win a championship
because you have to have a lot of pieces.
Wilkins a superstar?
No.
All-star, no superstar, no.
Was Reggie Miller a superstar?
No.
Hell no.
No.
But Dominique Wilkins was very consistent over his career.
But in the playoffs, he never took his team that far. What did he take his team first round?
Was Scottie Pippen a superstar?
No.
I
No.
would say no.
Okay, was Charles Barkley a superstar?
Yes.
Yes.
Why
Absolutely.
was Charles Barkley a superstar? Please explain.
Because he was always good in the playoffs. Not to mention, Phoenix couldn't even make it to the finals, but the moment they got Charles Barkley with the same team, they went on to the finals. That's what a superstar does.
Was Allen Iverson a superstar?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's not even a question. Absolutely.
Was Vince Carter a superstar?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say yes.
He took Toronto far with not a lot of help.
I'm gonna give you one that's
Was
probably
he better than
controversial.
Dominic Wilkins?
Yes.
Yes, he was.
Tracy
Absolutely.
McGrady was
Yes,
a
he
super.
was.
Tracy McGrady was a super.
Here's
I got you, Byron.
He's better.
I got
Vince
you
Carter's
for
better
one.
player.
Here's
Go
a
ahead.
controversial one. Tracy McGrady was a superstar. You probably will both disagree. He was
No.
absolutely a superstar.
I'm gonna
No.
say no.
No. He was a
Mhm.
great regular season player.
And I love
Playoffs, he
I
never
love
excelled
him.
or performed.
I love
No.
Tracy. I actually met him during All-Star Weekend in 2020.
Nice guy.
Tracy, superstar? No, because he never made it out the first round. Never.
James Harden,
Technically,
yes,
not.
superstar.
Technically, Tracy did. Yeah,
He took-
James
hey,
Harden's a
hold on.
superstar.
He took the Rockets twice to the 2 or 3 times, I think, to the Western Conference Finals. He just happened to run into Kevin Durant and run into Golden State
And
Warriors.
if not
and
for
won
a
the
Chris
championship.
Paul injury, and I get it, Iguodala
But
got
he was
by
hurt, so
himself the
maybe,
first
but
couple
still,
times on those
they
teams.
damn near beat Golden State.
But that Game 7, he didn't show up.
It happens.
No,
He's still a
but-
superstar.
But see, one thing about James Harden, I'm gonna tell you one reason why we got to stop criticizing him. He plays so like when that Game 7 of that season when Chris Paul was hurt. Look at the amount of minutes he played in that regular season when Chris Paul was out. He pretty much had to play 40 plus minutes every game in order for them to win. You come down to a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals, man. Not only are you mentally exhausted, you are physically exhausted.
And guess what?
With no help.
James Harden, I don't think wants to play that way where he takes all the shots, gets all.
No.
You know the way he's playing now in Philadelphia. I think that's how he prefers to actually play.
He does. And I'm gonna tell you something. You can tell even his behavior. I'll take pay cuts because I see what we have here to get other guys to contribute and help us win.
And you see
I
what
like
he's
the
doing in that.
mentality.
Hey,
He's changing
slimming
his
down,
body.
too.
He's slimming
Yes.
his body back up. So we're gonna see a very different James Harden this year. And 76ers could be very, very dangerous. But my argument with Russ is this here. It's not Russ. Russ doesn't have superstar numbers. He does. But he doesn't have inefficient. He's inefficient shooting the ball. And Russ is inefficient in the playoffs. Let's go to Game 5 when they played against Portland in Portland when Damian Lillard hit the shot. Paul George was 13 for 17 with like 37 points in that game. He was hot the whole game. He only missed 4 shots. And Russell Westbrook took 4 or 5 shots because he felt like he was the superstar. In the last 2 to 4 minutes of that game, he took some bad shots. It's his decision making when the game was on the line. And that's why you can't have a guy like him be a superstar. You can be a superstar. Magic Johnson is a perfect example. I can still be a superstar if I'm not taking the last second shot. If I give it to the open man and he knocks the shot down, I get just as many bragging rights as the guy who made the shot. I did a smart decision by giving
the
ball
one
to
we
somebody
did the
who's open.
podcast, our first
It's
segment.
smart.
Bill Russell was a superstar.
Yes. And he was
He
the third
didn't shoot the
option on the
ball a lot.
team.
Yeah. I mean, it's why when you really go back at that championship Detroit team in 04, is he a superstar? No, but you could make the argument Ben Wallace was the best player on that team.
Ben Wallace was a
You
superstar.
can
He
make-
was a defensive
you
superstar.
You
Yes.
could make the argument he was. I'm not saying he was. Some people
He
say
was.
Chauncey. Some people might say Rasheed Wallace. I would go either Chauncey or Ben Wallace, but I'm saying you can make the argument. He was the best player on that team. You know
Ben Wallace's defensive handprint was on that team.
Mhm.
See, people, and I hate this about basketball. People, I know the object is to score the ball, but there's so many ways. And I teach my son this. Sometimes you might not get all the shots, but there's a way to make a print on the game. Diving for loose balls, getting a rebound,
Right.
getting steals or getting stops,
Right.
passing to the guy who you know is the better shooter. These things make you a superstar in your own right. I can be a superstar. Jason Kidd was a superstar, but he was a superstar passer.
Well, it's like a lot of people always say:
He-
"Is
I
are
don't
you a
think with
superstar?"
I agree with that. I think Grant Hill and Penny Hardaway. Well, Penny Hardaway.
They were superstars. No, they were both superstars.
They were
Yeah.
superstars, absolutely.
But look at how they ended. Unfortunately, injuries took them out. So
Yeah,
how
that doesn't mean that.
determine who's a star and who's a superstar?
I'll say this.
Because oh, give me one moment, Matt, 1 second, because we have disagreed on who's a superstar, and who's not. Tracy McGrady is a Hall of Famer, but he's not a superstar. Dominique Wilkins is a Hall of Famer. He's a top 75 player, but he's not a superstar. Is Clyde Drexler a superstar?
Yes.
Yes.
So
look how he led his team to the playoffs. Look, Clyde Drexler, and let's go look at the Trailblazers team. The Trailblazers team that played against Mike was a very good team, but it wasn't a star-studded team. He was the only star on that team, and got him to the finals.
It was Clyde.
That's a superstar.
Maybe another guy like Terry Porter, who's been
Terry
an
Porter,
all-star, and then
he's
a
a very
bunch of
good
really,
player.
really good, and a bunch of really, really good players.
Good role players, but
Terry Porter was like a Chauncey Billups.
Terry Porter was an all-star a couple times, I think, at least once. I know he was.
yeah, he was. I think
He was an all-star. Yeah, he was an all-star caliber player, but he was
he
probably
wasn't a
the only
superstar player.
No.
Most superstars are going to get you the average superstar. They're going to get you 20 plus points a game, and that's in regular season. And they're going to do that in the playoffs. They're going to be efficient, shooting about 43 and up percentage-wise. And they're going to do this in regular season and the playoffs. They also, when they're in the game, they impact and make everybody around them better. They get past the first round in the playoffs. Like Clyde Drexler took that team to the finals and they lost to Mike, the GOAT. Allen Iverson took a team full of players that probably nobody would want on their team. Aaron McKee won the 6 man. He averaged like 12 points a game.
Except for Mutombo.
And Mutombo's a good defensive player.
Was he on that team?
He was.
He was, right? Yeah.
Tyrone Hill was a good player, a good role player, but he didn't have any superstars on that team with him.
No, he did have one of the best defenders though. Well, with Mutombo, and then one of the best perimeter defenders in Eric Snow. But that's why it worked.
Again, he didn't have no superstars. He was
no. He didn't even have another star. Unless you consider, if they're going to contender, maybe Mutombo. Yeah.
And go look at his final stats. They weren't bad. Like, man, he actually showed up. He just didn't have
the entire
enough
defense of the Lakers was geared against him.
Yes. So that just lets you know how great of a player he was.
So let's talk about what makes someone a superstar. Is it wins? Is it consistency with scoring or defense? What is it? What constitutes what makes you a superstar in the league?
I think it's a combination of everything. I think it's consistency on scoring, efficiency, shooting the ball. It's getting your teammates involved. When the game's on the line, you're able to make the smart play, not necessarily always the best shot, but the smart play. You lead your team. You can get your team. If you're the only superstar of your team, and you can lead your team, like look what Luka Doncic did, and I have to use him. He's definitely a superstar. Look what he did. His first couple of years, he got eliminated in the first round. He didn't have a lot of help, but look at his numbers. He was killing it. Like, he showed you, no, I'm here and I'm ready. He showed you this year. Look, he got a little more help and went on to the Western Conference Finals. If he can get another superstar on that team with him, we talking possible championship for Luka. He needs another superstar. Like I say, I understand they have like a Dinwiddie and all that. They're good players, but they ain't the caliber player that he is. If he gets another player somewhat just a tad bit closer to him, bro, I'm talking about sky's the limit for him. He could very well be a championship caliber player.
Is Trae Young a superstar?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, because he just look at how bad that team was this year. He's the only reason. He's the major reason that he made the playoffs.
Hey, gentlemen, I'm gonna tell you straight up. I think we got a better chance of that rabbit getting a bowl of tricks or finding out how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. We are not gonna agree on this one. We're just not gonna
No, because but see, it's subjective, and that's the beauty of it. Nobody's saying you're stupid for that. I'm gonna throw in this. Greg mentioned a bunch of great point things, which I agree with a lot of what he said too. But also the social side of it, the popularity side of it, I think is big. It's why I put Tracy up there. Because let's be honest, when Tracy played, the only more player popular than him at that time in his prime was probably Kobe. It was Kobe and it was Tracy. And that's to me important as a superstar. It's why I think, and I used to not think this way when I was arguing with Mike. I was kind of pushing back on this idea, but I see where Mike is going with. I think Kyrie Irving is very close. He's on that edge of a superstar because of that. He's Uncle Drew. Everybody knows him. He's got the, you know what I mean? And I think that's a part of it. Because let's be honest, if Michael Jordan wasn't popular, he never would have been a superstar. It was the charisma, all that stuff. You know, the personality. And I think Tracy actually does have a good personality. It's why I'll say this. I don't think Kawhi Leonard is a superstar because of his personality, and he's always hurt. But one thing, he's just not on the court, yes. But when you consider everything, I want to make him a superstar because I love Kawhi's game.
That's a hot take, bro.
It's tough.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
Kawhi's
you see where I'm. I know it's
tough.
It's that whole. It's his career. It's
if you would have
I
said
don't get two
DeMar
championships, two
DeRozan,
finals
I'd be
MVPs.
like no. But
oh
he's
hell no, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, none of them are even close to superstars. I'm not fans of either one of them, but still, I think right now, shoot. I mean, and once you become a superstar, you're always there. So even though James Harden may not have had the superstar number, he's still a superstar.
He's
KD's
still
a
a superstar,
superstar. Yeah, Steph, Jokic. Although Jokic is kind of on that border for me, once again, just because of the whole social thing and the popularity thing. So Jokic is kind of on the border. On the court, if we're just talking pure basketball, absolutely. That's why I'm kind of on the edge with Kawhi.
No, man.
On the basketball court, you don't
become a back-to-back MVP.
Well, hear me out, though.
You can't do that and not be a superstar.
Hey, I'm probably wrong on this, right? I have no proof. If I'm wrong and I'm an idiot for saying it, fine. But answer this for me, though, Byron. Go after the Raptors won, going into that next year. So he goes to the Clippers. Who did I say was the best player in the NBA going into that season?
You said Kawhi was.
Exactly. I still think that's the guy he is, which technically, if you're the best player, you're a superstar. But I guess it's just the whole, and maybe that's what makes him great as a social, and on the social part of it, the popularity part, because he really has no personality. Like maybe it just works for him, because everybody calls him Fun Guy. And remember, he did that press conference when he first got to Toronto, and he did that laugh, and everybody made fun of it. I mean, I'll eat that one. Yeah, he's a superstar. I'll eat that one.
You know what? I'll actually backtrack. I'll backpedal on what I said. McGrady was a superstar at one point. I'll give you McGrady. I'll give it to you.
I just think he was. I really think he was.
What? I'm gonna give it to you because
he was the man.
I don't think you're a Hall of Famer and not a superstar all the time. That's why I think Dominique Wilkins to me was a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
He put rear ends in seats.
That's very fair. It's what I've just
entertained. Yeah. He was consistent over a long period of time. He just did not have a good team.
They were good, but they weren't great.
And I think he was a better basketball player. He didn't have the longevity that Vince Carter had, but I don't think that Vince Carter had the game that Dominique Wilkins had.
Vince could shoot. Vince was a better shooter.
He could shoot better, and he was a better ball handler, but the time was a little different. So, in fair, we got to say
Dominique with Tracy McGrady. Dominique never played with the talent like McGrady. He had Doc Rivers. Come on.
McGrady's problem was
he had Doc Rivers, Kevin Willis. He didn't have play.
Yeah, I know. McGrady really didn't have McGrady had. The problem was McGrady couldn't win, especially in Houston, because Yao kept going down. He kept getting hurt. It wasn't that he wasn't good enough to win; it's just injuries.
I think he was done before he got to Houston due to injuries.
Nah, come on.
I'm talking about due to injuries.
Oh yeah. When he got to Houston, he was fine.
His body was already breaking down.
No, absolutely not. It didn't start breaking down until 2007-ish, 2008-ish. His third year with the Rockets is when it really started to go downhill. But Byron, because we have gone a little longer than we want, man. You got to do our sneaker segment, man, because this is a big one.
I was actually going to save it.
Nah, you got to do it, man. It's a big one.
But since you insist, I'm going to go ahead and share, and then we're going to close out. Gentlemen, this has been fun. To everybody who's probably been wondering where I am, I have had a busy schedule. That's why I haven't been on an episode in a while. We really didn't plan for me to host. I'm glad that I did. I miss being on here, having these discussions, these debates with you guys, and I want to share something. So everybody complains about the sneakers app like all the time. Nobody can. They make songs about them and everything. And I will say this: I have probably won more than the average person has on the sneakers
Yes.
when it comes to big releases. I've hit on Off-Whites. I got the Sean Weatherspoon Air Max off of there. But
You hit on the Serena Blazers.
I got the Serena Blazers. Please don't bring those up. I foolishly sold them. I'm going to get them back. I'm sorry, Serena. I'm going to get them back. But
A real fun story. I was with Byron when he hit on that one.
you were actually in LA.
Yep. In that very spot he's sitting in.
That I don't remember.
Actually, no. I was actually sitting on the toilet. I had to say it. Go ahead. What do we got for us, Byron? I'm ready.
So I have been complaining to Matt how I hadn't had a big win in a long time. Especially, I've never hit on the Travis Scott anything. And so many of my friends hit on him. I'm like, man, everybody won. I was happy for them. I was like, man, it seemed like so many. And then they were posting on Instagram like the got him screen. And they were saying things such as, oh, I didn't even really want them, but I just entered and I won them. Okay, so I'll take them. And I really wanted them to wear them, and I couldn't. I feel entitled because I'm from Houston. Travis is from Houston, but I wasn't able to hit on anything Travis until finally, it's been almost 2 weeks ago.
No, it was a week ago Thursday, so about 10 days.
So about 10 days ago, I entered the draft like so many others did, and I got that got him screen, and I just had this inkling, I had this feeling that it was going to happen for me. And I was on my CC Pennington. Finally, it's happened to me right in front of my face. And
Show everybody the box.
This is the box.
There we go.
Hey, man, this is a huge box. I have a big foot. I won't say what size I wear. Maybe if you meet me and you say the wrong thing, you'll find out when you're trying to dig it out your aspirin.
Tough guy.
The family show.
Byron's a teddy bear. Don't worry.
This is a Travis Scott reverse mocha low. It's in hand. It is a beautiful shoe, and I'm happy that I own them. And they even smell.
It's too bad Kyrie can't see those.
Yeah, I'll send pictures to Greg so that. Shout outs to.
Hey, I got a question real quick, man, and it does have to do with these too. Why is it that the Jordan 1 is the only sneaker from these retros that comes unlaced like that?
I don't know. You'd have to ask someone that works for.
I really want to know that. Have you noticed that, Greg? It's only the ones. It's only the ones.
Yeah.
But I will say this: Jordan 1 lows are on the come up. I realize now. I've seen some colorways. Not really my thing, but I saw a colorway on Twitter today, and I was thinking I have to have those. They're really, really dope. Gentlemen,
yes.
I'm about to wrap it up. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to say?
Nah, good stuff, Byron, man. Waited to jump in and take the reins from Mike while he was having technical difficulties this evening.
This has been so much fun. Please subscribe. Check us out on Apple Music, on Spotify,
Apple
Podcasts. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And also, I want to send shout outs to Mike, who had technical difficulties. He's the normal host. He will be back for the next episode. And I want to send a shout out to Pistol Pito. Couldn't make it tonight. We love you. We can't wait till we all come together again like Voltron. And I want to send a shout out to my little brother, Doom Doom.
Hey, boy.
This has been another episode of the Loop City Podcast. Signing off. Until next time. Peace.